A Confession to Soothe You. Written by Just Thinking Drabbles. Read by Arashi. When Hubert had heard that Jeritza was injured while fighting with the Agarthans, he felt the blood drain from his face. He tried to focus on the rest of the soldier's report, but his mind only half registered the information he was being given. He wasn't sure of the degree of the wound, but serious or no, he could not leave it, or it might get infected. And if he knew Jeritza, which he absolutely did, perhaps more than anyone, except maybe Mercedes, then he knew he would just let him be. After all, he was his boyfriend? Lover. Friend who he frequently had lots of sex with. He wasn't sure exactly what they were, but regardless, he knew that if Jeritza was injured, he wanted to see him. He needed to, in fact. After the soldier had finished and took his leave, Hubert hurriedly went to search for him, and as he had speculated, he found the man inside his tent instead of visiting the infirmary. "Jeritza, I need to speak with you," he demanded. To anyone else, his tone sounded calm, level even, but he knew that he would recognize the hint of worry in his voice. As if expecting his arrival, Jeritza almost immediately opened the tent flap. "Hubert," he said, and gestured for him to come in, knowing well that he would not take no for an answer. The mage entered, and watched as Jeritza followed, taking a seat on his bedroll, and offering for him to sit beside him. He tisked, and crossed his arms, furrowing his brows at how seemingly unaffected he was by being injured. "You were hurt?" he asked, and it came out much harsher than he had meant it to. He couldn't help it, though. There was a queasy feeling in his stomach that distracted his mind and made him feel utterly sick. He hated to think that something could be terribly wrong with Jeritza, and he hated even more to think that he would simply leave it. Jeritza hummed. "I was, but it was nothing serious, just a minor scrape on my upper arm. Let me see it," he told him as he knelt down beside him. Jeritza looked at him for a moment, a perplexed expression crossing his face. He did as he was asked, though, and carefully removed his shirt. Hubert certainly did not stare at his bare chest for a second longer than it was necessary, but if he had done so, then it was purely because he was examining him for other marks and bruises he may have obtained during battle. Yes, that was all it was. The injury was indeed a minor one, just a small scrape upon his upper arm that must have been caused by the near slice of a blade. Yet, seeing it made Hubert's heart sink, and tears well in his eyes. If he had been there to protect him, then perhaps this wouldn't have happened. Or even better, he could have taken down the soldier who had done this himself. He took a steadying breath, and slowly removed the glove from his right hand. He didn't mind if Jeritza saw the magic stained upon his fingers, since he had seen them before during other far more intimate moments. Hubert spoke the incantation for the bit of healing magic he knew, and hovered over the wound. "May I?" Jeritza tensed at first, his first instinct to be hesitant of anyone coming so close to them. But then he looked into Hubert's green eyes, saw the concern and tears resting in them, and extended his arm to him. "If you must," he replied. The sensation of the magic as it met his skin was cool, and it made him shudder. Hubert paused, wondering if he had hurt him, but Jeritza shook his head and motioned for him to continue. They sat in silence as he worked, both of them at a loss for words. Typically, when they were together, there was no need for idle chatter, since he was either giving him orders and discussing strategy, or being kissed so hard that there was no need for words. In this silence, however, it almost felt more intimate than all of the times that they had hooked up. His skin was warm beneath Hubert's fingertips, soft too, and he never really had a chance to admire him this way before. In the dim lantern light, he could see every scar upon his chest, every mole and freckle that would occasionally go unnoticed, and he wondered absently what it might be like to kiss it, not heated or rushed as he normally might, but in a reverent, loving way that would leave butterflies in both their stomachs. He took a sharp inhale and tried to steady his fingers when he realized what he had thought. It was true that he loved Jeritza, but for him to love him back, it was an impossibility. No one could love a Vestra. He was all darkness, a knife lurking in the shadows, not a cherishable thing to be kissed and cared for. And Jeritza? Well, he deserved better than anything that Hubert could give him. After a few minutes, the wound was finally patched up, and Hubert removed his hand, taking a small kerchief from his pocket and wiping up the remnants of blood from his skin. Jeritza watched him with rapt attention, and his continued gaze had heat filling Hubert's cheeks. He quickly finished and turned away, coughing awkwardly as he started to put his glove on again. "You're all finished." "Thank you." "You're welcome. Well then, I should—" Jeritza grabbed his wrist gently, halting him in his tracks. "Why did you come?" Hubert blinked at him. You were injured." "Yes, but it was only a minor one, and it would have healed on its own. You didn't have to come, and yet you did." He huffed, trying to sound indignant, but it did not seem to have the intended effect of Jeritza releasing him. "Just because it isn't a serious wound doesn't mean it can't get infected. Honestly, you do not seem to care about your well-being at all." "But you do. Why?" "Why?" He mirrored the question, unsure of how to answer it. He knew why. He had known for such a long time. Why else would he want to spend so much time with him? To let him kiss him when no one else could? It was because... I love you." Jeritza's eyes widened, and he slowly released his hold on his hand. "You love me. I love you. You—" "Yes! Must I say it thrice for you to believe me?" There was silence between them once more, and Hubert was sure that he had ruined everything. Slowly, he stood and prepared to leave. He didn't need to wait for the answer, after all. Vestras were not made for happy endings. "Wait," Jeritza said, as he stood too. Hubert paused and closed his eyes, preparing himself for rejection. "I love you, too." He opened his eyes and faced him. His lips parted in surprise. "You love me?" And took Hubert's hand in both of his. "I will not say I know how to be a good partner, but I want to try." Hubert chuckled. "I am unaware of how it all works as well. Perhaps we can learn together." "Indeed." Jeritza kissed him then, much softer and sweeter than all the other times they had kissed. But it was somehow much better, and he never wanted it to stop. Together. They were together, would learn to do this together. He could ask for nothing more.